Welcome to the town of Tallulah Falls, June 23rd, 2021 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. This is a work session. All present. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as written, or is there any changes to be made?
I make a motion to adopt.
I'll second.
The next item on the agenda is the tree ordinance to discuss, and I know that we got several other cities that we're looking to talk about as far as looking at what they have. So if someone wants to start the discussion.
Well, I was looking at the Sky Valley, and it's a lot more compressed than Edenton. And it does have a lot of things that I think are important addressed on their ordinance going forward. I looked at Edenton's tree ordinance further, and I think it's a little bit complicated to start with. Revisions and everything can happen later on, but I think for the base tree ordinance, the Sky Valley one that we have looks to me like it is a little bit more comprehensive for what we want, instead of just the Edenton is just so detailed.
I almost get lost in it.
It's detailed, very detailed. And I like a lot of the things that it has, but I think when we're trying to adopt the first tree ordinance that we have.
My opinion on that is if it's really, really detailed, it's gonna get into the same area as having like a homeowners association. And that's something that most people in Tallulah Falls will not like.
I agree. I mean, and that all we could do is kind of go forward from what we would think. And I agree with that. I mean, I look at it in terms of me being able to do something in my own backyard, so.
Yeah, I liked Sky Valley from the beginning. I liked it better than I did Clayton's or Cleveland's. And I had a chance to go through Edenton since our last meeting, and it is a little complex. It would take a lot to get that across to the community of what we're trying to get across.
Does Raven County have a tree ordinance?
Or
Habersham?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. and this is off subject, but I did call the marshal's office and ask about enforcing ordinances, and incorporated cities do not get enforced by Raven County marshals. So it would have to be, and I think I sent this email out as far as Linda would provide that information to the taxpayers, and the police chief would enforce it. So if something came across Linda's desk as far as either a complaint or a permit, it would then be left up to the chief of police to enforce that ordinance. And then I don't know where it goes from there as far as, if there's a ticket written or a summons, who actually, if a tree has to be, I'm going to give you an example. If a tree has to be taken down, who's going to enforce that and oversee that purpose of that tree being taken down? So that's getting into a whole lot more than I think what we're discussing tonight. But as far as, is it Ms. Elrod? Okay, she would go out and, either give a citation or a summons to the customer who is in violation. And then they would either have to come back before the city council or.
Well, I thought that was good too about Sky Valley, because there's an area for warning. And I think that's super important. I don't think we should jump right on the violation. I think people need, deserve a chance to correct something if it's improper. You know, you just address it and say, hey, you know,
Yeah.
you did something wrong, or you could have done it this way, or whatever have you.
Yeah.
Instead of just jumping right onto,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
important because you want to work with your town.
yeah,
I mean, you wanna
well, I
work
think
with
most
everyone.
people wanna do the right thing for everybody, but, you know, mistakes are made.
So does everybody have a copy of the Sky Valley ordinance?
I don't have one, but I've got.
Okay.
I'm gonna share.
Yes.
So I guess y'all want to just, I mean, it's 12 pages long, and I know that we're going to mark out the parts that we're not interested in passing on to the city council. So,
Well, that's one thing I did like about Eatonton's is that first part about why we want to have a tree ordinance. That whole first section on there, it takes into account everything, the reasons why I feel like we need to have a tree ordinance. It hits all of those big areas of concern.
You're talking about the purpose, where it says purpose?
Yes,
I
that
agree.
whole,
I agree.
that whole thing. I really like that.
I like that too.
And it, you know, as somebody that, you know, if I want to do something and I'm not sure and I'm gonna look, at least I can know, well, why are they doing this? That clearly lines it out.
okay, so we can insert that to the purpose in behind the definitions. You
Yeah,
want to do that?
yeah, I think so. I think that's a really good idea. Because it's more like an explanation to begin with. To let people know, you know, what our intentions are as far as our community, what we're trying to accomplish.
And just for the purpose of the audience, if we have anybody watching, the purpose of these standards is to facilitate the preservation and or replacement of trees as part of land development, building construction process within the city. Benefits derived from the tree protection and replanting include, and then there's a list of 10, and of course, anyone that wants a copy of this before it hits the city council is welcome to it, but basically it improves control, soil and erosion, stormwater runoff, improvement of water quality. We could go through the whole list, but I think every one of these are just common sense, you know, as far as encouraging the preservation of existing trees.
Yeah, because it really talks about everything from pollution to wildlife and erosion.
Reduction of noise and glare.
Right.
Well, just
Yeah,
part-
just the
part-
first section.
Yeah, just part of it.
So it would be
Just the first
page
part.
1 of 37 under section 75-711.
We're talking about just taking this section here and kind of incorporating it into the Sky Valley.
I got it.
And if you look at Sky Valley's on page 2 and 3, it kind of has the same as far as the application, evaluation of the tree cutting permit, the city marshal, city manager, and the city council may consider, but not limited to the following. Those fall in line with this. It's not duplicated, I don't think, and just looking at it right off the bat.
Oh, it does.
One of the main differences is them talking about specimen trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Eaton one went on about it in a different place.
Yeah, they give the replacement ideas if something is removed. They also talk about, they don't want you, in this particular ordinance, they don't want you to go in and remove trees in an emergency basis, which they allow. If you have an emergency and a tree needs to be removed for one thing or another,
What's an emergency?
well, they go into it really.
Like say if a tree is fixing to fall on your house or is gonna fall on power lines.
They give you
Things like that.
certain, reasons of how that, because you're able to bypass some of the process in order to do that.
And that makes
Which I think-
sense.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to
I
stick
mean, if
around
you're
for
having a problem,
another
you don't-
month, knowing all the rain.
Exactly. You don't want another problem on top of having to deal with a tree falling on power lines or whatever. I mean, it seems like it streamlines it a little bit. I also like the way that it, under the penalties and violations, it talks about failure to remove trees off your land. It gives you 14 days to clean the area up.
What page are you looking at on that?
This is under section 12-197. It says penalties for violation. So towards the end.
And I guess this is what I was talking about as far as the enforcing on 12-196, fees charged by the city for cutting. So if the city had to hire a contractor to come and do it, that homeowner would be responsible.
And also talking about the homeowner being responsible, it also talks about people that would be doing work on your property need to be licensed and insured.
Mhm.
If they're not, you can waive that, but you have to sign proper paperwork taking that responsibility on yourself. Which I personally think that's pretty smart, because there's a lot of things you can get into felling trees that encompass neighbors and everything else. And you have a problem where the city would want to get involved in because of liability issues, obviously. So I think it's smart to kind of cover that a bit with felling trees. Y'all see that under the 12-197, and then it talks about under C, subsection C, a failure to remove any trees cut or debris from top trim within 14 days of completion will be considered a violation. And it says a fine that goes along with that is $100 per day.
How do you collect that?
That's where your police chief would come in and enforce it. And then,
I mean, like I said, again, I think warnings are very important in that.
y'all have city
Yeah.
court, right? There is city court in
Yes.
Tallulah Falls. So it would be summons to the city council, and then they would determine whether it would go before the judge. I would think, I mean, that's how it
Mhm.
would normally work.
Mhm.
And the judge could set that fine up to $100 per day. And you're not gonna have very many of those instances, I don't think. I mean, I think once policy's put in place and it's documented, I think you'll have compliance.
Mhm. Well, I mean, to be honest with you, there's a lot of reasons to want that off of property. When you're in summertime and you have a pile of leaves or trees, the heat that's generated in the center of that pile is more than some people think about. And it can spontaneously combust. And the last thing that we want in Tallulah Falls is another fire.
Yeah.
Tallulah Falls has been devastated by fire in its history, and I think we should all be well aware of not wanting to have that and trying to be careful about it. Because I don't think there's anything more devastating than that. Something that can be, watched out for. And natural disasters are one thing, but something like that, we can kind of keep that from happening.
We would need to really advertise this if it gets passed by the city council, because in section E, if the application is not properly permitted by the city manager, the property owner shall pay a penalty to the city to double the normal permit fee. So you would want to give a grace period there too,
Mhm.
once this gets passed, we really need to put it out there, whether it goes to the radio, the newspaper, or
Probably should
newsletter.
put it out to tree companies too.
Yeah. Just because it's something new. I mean, the current tree ordinance doesn't have any of this in it. Is that correct?
I don't believe
I
so.
don't think so.
I mean, any permits as far as
No.
penalties and permits.
When they talk about the drain field and septic tank and it says it must be approved by the building inspector. Who's that?
Well, I think they already have to get that approved anyway, when they get their, permit from the
It would
health
be,
department. I think.
yeah.
So
With
that's
the-
not here, I mean, that's not Tallulah Falls, that's when they get the septic tank. That's-
Yeah, they come out and tell them
Okay.
where they can put it, don't, I don't know how that works.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yes,
would still have to go to the county, whether it be Habersham or Raven, to get a septic tank permit through the health department.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's who the building inspector is when they purchase the septic tank
Mhm.
authorization. and- okay.
Yeah, yeah. He
Well, I
would,
assume when you go to build, you have to have that first. It's one of the first things they
Yeah.
do. So when you permit to build,
mhm.
they go in, they have to do soil testing, and all, and so on.
And as far as the land disturbance permit, that should be covered under the state if this gets passed by city council. Or is it state or EPD?
Well, it's EPD, but that's the state.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Okay. I didn't know how it was listed on there. I see EPD on there now, so. Is there anything else in Eaton's that you wanted to insert in there as far as, seems like there was another part that we were talking about.
Something I wasn't clear on is, does this apply to all of the plots, or if it's the smaller plots, does this apply?
The tree ordinance applies to every tree in
Mhm.
Tallulah Falls.
So this applies to if you have a half acre lot.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
No.
I wasn't clear.
That
on
was the main reason I was trying to do this, is because the land development is anything less than an acre, or more than an acre.
Mhm.
So this would cover everything that it didn't cover.
Exactly right.
Okay, good. Now, my lot's just an acre. I mean, I don't have a big lot.
You got lots of trees.
I'm sorry.
You have lots of trees.
Yes, I have lots of trees. I planted a lot of trees too. Well,
We're
that's
getting lots
good.
of trees, but
So
it's
the tree
just-
ordinance applies to all
Oh, maybe.
the lots regardless of
I feel like
size.
it's first this year, then has one. Not just me. And the shot is fast.
Is that in here? I don't remember reading that. That this applies to all lots regardless of size.
Issuing of the land disturbance permit is contingent upon approval of the tree protection plan.
Yeah, I like that.
Where is it?
It is in the one for Eatonton. It's,
Oh, but not Sky Valley.
no, it's the section 75-714 under procedures, and it's the C. The issuance of the land disturbance permit is contingent upon approval of the tree protection plan. So that means that if you got a land disturbance permit, they'd have to look at the tree protection plan first.
Mhm.
I would think that should be in ours.
Yeah, that's in Eaton, but it's
Yeah.
not in the Sky Valley, but we can insert it in there.
Mhm.
That'd be super important.
Yes.
That's a good one.
I'm sorry. I
But
didn't
then they would
understand-
have
I didn't
to,
understand
What page
you
is that
said
on the
was.
bottom right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
5 out of 37,
37.
5,
5 out of
page 5.
Is that anything?
Does it start on page 4 though?
Well, that particular thing doesn't. It's
It's under
the
number two.
section starts on that one,
Mhm. Okay,
section 75,714,
so it's just section C, or
the C.
subparagraph C,
subject,
okay.
Yeah, which is only a couple lines, but it's important, couple lines.
Yeah, issues on the land disturbance bridge continues.
So far, we're looking at insertions from page 1 and page 5. And wasn't there one other one? I do like how they give you a list of trees in Eatonton, but it's just so much, I mean,
Where is that?
on Eatonton, they have a list of the trees that they want you to,
You can replace with,
yeah,
The preferred list.
right.
yeah, they'll allow
Yeah.
other things,
I
but
think,
everything from that list is good.
just don't want to get too many pages in there. It's a lot. I thought Sky Valley kind of touched on it a little bit. Or what? That's the other thing through the permitting process, is you actually have to make sure that you're understanding of these rules. It says that right in there. So they need to have a copy of this and they need to understand it before they proceed, so that's kind of smart.
One thing I don't see in Sky Valley is the buffer between property lines. Really do need that too.
We mentioned that before. It's important, Eatonton. What did they say, 20 feet, something like that?
Yes, and if you destroy it, if it comes down, you have to plant something that will cover it 100% visible, where you can't see the neighbor 100%. It has to be 6 feet tall within 2 years. Something that will grow 6 feet tall within 2 years.
So is that on page 11 in the Eatonton's, the protective barrier?
No, it's on
No.
page.
The protective barriers is for the actual trees that you want to keep.
Oh, okay.
That's what that's for, which is another thing that. I just saw it.
Yeah, I was just on.
I think it's towards the back. There it is. Page 30. Number 3. It's on the bottom of the page.
So it would be page 30 and 31, the closest top of 31 is to provide 100% visible barrier.
And
Okay.
it says minimum of 3.5 to 4 feet tall at the time of planting.
I just know, like, with my house, I don't ever hear you outside.
Right.
But I hear the ones on the other side of me outside. We have nothing between us. And they can hear me or my kid.
Right.
I
Well-
think that's important for privacy.
We have absolutely no measure in our. And one of my neighbors made a comment on Facebook, I could see right in my bathroom window.
Do we want to put the species of trees as a recommendation?
We can, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I just don't know.
Under that, it says other trees may be approved by case basis.
Right,
yeah, I think it's, I mean,
I think we could probably just,
It don't have to be, this big, it could just be, I mean, this makes it
And on
look
that
like
buffers-
we're including a lot, but it's,
yeah,
And on the buffers too, it's not necessarily that you have to have a buffer between the property lines.
I
Right?
think that's what she's.
yeah, if you cut it down, you have to replace it back.
Yeah, if you cut it down, but if you don't have one now, you don't have to put one in.
Right, right. But if you cut it down, you have to replace it.
Except for otherwise stipulated in conditions of rezoning. So that means also that if they rezone it, they would have to put up a buffer.
I'll put these pages on my list and then put a question mark next to it. For, I mean, I feel like we should give people an idea of what they want to plant or what they don't want. Obviously, you don't want an invasive species.
So we
in there.
could give them a list of these are, definitely
Just
acceptable.
an idea, and then
Things that are just, that are native here.
that's not too bad, actually. It's only 2 pages and then a little bit. 45 to
It's about
37.
50, 50 species, so that gets a lot. But it could also be changed, I mean, it's case by case.
Yeah. And that's where we might have get the forestry to help us with that list too.
Now, on page 2, section 2, it gives an explanation of the buffer. And we might want to put that in as part of that. See, because they have explanations in Edenton for the things that they have in their ordinance. So if we're gonna, use parts of it, we should probably make sure the explanation's in there as well.
Yeah,
It makes sense.
and there's where Linda will also become, she's very familiar with this,
Yeah.
so that she knows where to insert those.
Kind of like how they have too, that the words shall and must are mandatory and the words may and should are permissive.
That's good. Is that in?
It's right above, no, it's in the E one right above that buffer on page 2.
Oh.
Maybe on your page 2.
Yeah, that's
I mean, really, that should be kind of
That's
like an everything.
Kind of good, that's the difference of leniency and not. And, also, I want to find out, I've got Heather from EPD talking about coming to our July meeting. To kind of explain certain things that have to do with the adoption of the state ordinance. For erosion control and all that, which she can help with. She also mentioned to me that she may be able to get somebody from forestry to come and answer some questions as far as the tree ordinances that we have and what the general idea is for the state. Why everybody has certain tree ordinances and certain ideas about and replacements and things like that. Because let's face it, the tree ordinances and the land erosion disturbance is all connected. It's all part of it, especially when you start talking about slopes. You know, it's not just a flat ground, we're talking about mountains and slopes.
A lot of rain.
Obviously, that all has to do with another. So, I'll touch base with her again and try to find out if they're gonna be available for this next meeting. And maybe talk to Linda about that to see if, you know, we can let people know that they'll be here for some questions if people have that directed at the land disturbance mainly, you know, because that's what Heather, she'll know a little bit about trees and cutting down the trees, but it'll be, you know, more obviously for the land disturbance. And I think honestly, it'd probably be good for all of us.
Yeah.
Since, you know, as I've got some questions myself.
I'd be curious what kind of a criteria she had for the land that's been disturbed with the ordinance.
Yeah.
Just what did they use?
Well,
What did she
really,
go by?
I don't know. There is state regulations and stuff, so, but that's, you know, I mean, I'll see if they can come and answer questions.
Yeah, once you get a confirmation, if you would, let us know or
Sure,
let Linda know and she can
absolutely.
put it out. Cause she has that email,
Yeah, well,
address that she can,
I just wanted to firm it up.
Everybody has that, all you have to do is type in the PNZ and it'll send an email to all of us. It's in there
but
as a
she's got
group.
it for the whole community, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, because I've seen some where water leaks or something is, yeah, she could do that as far as notification goes,
Yeah.
to be able to get some questions out.
We do that with the tree ordinance too. But yeah, I'll double check. I want to make sure that I'm close enough to the meeting to where, I mean, I touched base with them about a month ago, three or 4 weeks ago, and everything looked good. She wanted to talk to Travis because I think Travis is going to come too. So hopefully we'll both be here, and because Travis is really knowledgeable about a lot of other things. He's an engineer too, so he does a lot of the commercial stuff, and he's a really nice guy. And Heather. So I'll give them a call and find out if they can make themselves available. Because they're on the clock and it's a big thing.
Yeah.
But they were nice enough to do that. So I'll try to make sure that they're gonna come, and then I'll just try to set that up for our July meeting.
That'll be the 14th.
Yes. Yeah, that's what tentatively it was, so that they had that for a date, and she was gonna talk to Travis and then get back with me. I haven't heard from them, but I can go ahead and touch base and see, because they're quite busy. They have a lot of area to deal with.
What is their area? Do you know? Two Falls, Raven County, Abersham?
It's all of the above.
Probably like the
It's
whole,
probably Hall County up.
Yeah,
probably like the whole health
it's a
district, like
big
10 to
area.
12 county.
I was surprised,
Just the one person?
because I mean, yeah, well, Travis helps, but Heather is taking over for Travis now. So, yeah, she's spread. I don't know what the square mileage area
I was
is,
thinking
but
county.
it's a lot. It's a lot. I think it's at least 3 counties, maybe more like 4 or 5. Because I think they're all, one of their offices, they were talking about Cleveland and then Tacoma as well. So,
So that would be Cleveland, Habersham, Stevens, probably Whiten Towns and Raven.
yeah.
Probably the whole northeast.
That's another question you can ask them when they're here and they can. Yeah, July 14th, and we're all
Is that
set on,
EPD, is that who you're talking about?
yeah, EPD.
Or if it's by,
And her name is Heather Kelly.
What's your last name?
Kelly.
More than I thought it was gonna be. I figured that they let the health district.
What is it? Is it?
there's 24 counties in our district,
Wow.
and that's the mountain district.
Mm.
And it's amazingly enough, doesn't include Hall.
Really?
It's
Awesome.
Raven, Habersham, White, Lumpkin, goes down to Forsyth County, goes down to Cobb County, goes down to Paulding and Harrelson. But it's
Wow.
a big little walk there.
Oh,
Yeah,
Big
wow.
little,
yeah,
what they are,
Yeah,
our district.
and I think that's.
And
what
if
she's
it's just
talking
one
about.
person that's covering that whole area.
I mean, they help each other, but I
Yeah.
mean, mainly, they try to keep it to one person, and I know Travis handled it for at least a year, maybe 2. And he was actually another part of EPD, and they brought him on because they had lost somebody in personnel, so. It's a lot, they've been very gracious to me as far as questions that I had, and helping out as far as what you can and can't do and things like that, so it'll be nice to have them here to answer questions.
And just for the record, the site that I went to find that map is epd.georgia.gov.
Yeah, that's what I have right here to get a hold of Heather. So that's.
Is there any portion of the Sky Valley that you want to take away? I know that's what we had talked about earlier, or when we were looking at Eatonton's too. So I would think we would give this to Linda, our next meeting, July the 14th. We would have a clean copy as far as the recommendation to then vote on to pass on to the city council for recommendations.
And I'd like to give Heather a heads up. You know, I mean, as far as the disturbance, obviously she's familiar with that because that's what they enforce. So she's familiar with but I mean, I'll let her know that I don't know if anything's been changed in that they handed us the draft. The ordinance draft for land disturbance. I don't know if anything's been changed from what they state, but. I'll let her know that that's what we're looking to adopt. For the land disturbance, and then. I'll tell her that we're looking at the Sky Valley. With a few additions and No subtractions, I don't know, I didn't see
I
anything.
didn't.
I didn't see anything that I disagreed with it,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's,
you know. And obviously, I look over the Eatonton and we had one other too, was it Cleveland?
yeah,
Cleveland.
Might look over that as well and see. But I think this is a pretty good start, what we have. I mean, we really don't have anything at this point.
um, I know this was just a discussion, so there won't be any vote on this, but, ma'am, do you have any discussion that you would like to talk about?
I'm just listening. I think on the whole, I'm probably gonna be against any ordinance except the very basic. I'm very strong believer in property rights. And if somebody's trying to say that what I'm doing on my property is causing harm to my neighbor or something, they're gonna have to prove that really strictly. I'm not about aesthetic ordinances or anything else like that. And so I'm just listening.
Okay. Prior to the adoption of this, the city council will have to have a public hearing. So you would be able to speak your piece at that moment. We're just making a recommendation to the city council and then they make the final decisions.
Like I say, I understand the need for maybe some restrictions. It's funny because as a person, ethically, the more trees, the better. I prefer not to cut trees on the land, but I also feel it's my land and I want to do with it what I think and not need someone else's permission, except like clear cutting or mountaintop or erosion, ecological reasons, those sorts of things. But beyond that, it is my responsibility to plant a hedgerow if I don't want to see what my neighbor's doing. It's not my neighbor's responsibility to not cut it down. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I where I live am in that situation a lot where my neighbors, so, oh, well, if they're gonna do that, then I'm gonna be sure and certain that I plant on my side of the property line enough to create that visual boundary and not depend on, like, rather than restricting what they do or don't with their property, I just take that responsibility that if I want that visual barrier, then I will plant it on my side of the property. Because that's my area of responsibility. So that's it. And I think that when you guys are talking about permission to cut trees, obviously I've missed all of your prior discussion, but are we talking about like a clear cutting ordinance would sound like you can't cut more than a certain percentage of your land
I think it's
without
25%.
permission. But we're not talking about like, if I have one tree that is this big around, I quite often cut trees on my property, but they're just, like saplings, or there's a tree that's growing away. I don't want it to, and it's maybe that big around, but I don't ask anyone, it's my property.
Right.
Right.
But if we're talking about not cutting more than whatever percentage of your land,
That's where we're at.
yeah, that's
We
a
have the
different
same idea.
scenario, really.
We're the same idea. We just, the thing that we're trying to address is when you have landowners that are looking almost commercially. It looks residential, it is residential, but when you own a lot of land, sometimes you have to put in certain rules, because it affects everyone in and around.
Yeah, see,
You
that's,
know,
for me, you'd have to prove how it's, like, is it just that you don't want to look at that, or what is the effect? Because I have
Well-
neighbors that clear cut, and I'm like, well, that's unfortunate, but it's their property, and if I don't want to look at it, then I'll put something there, so.
no, it's true.
Yeah,
But the
then you
problem
have
is,
erosion.
yeah,
That's-
the
yeah,
problem
that's
is
an
the
erosion issue,
erosion.
and that's a different conversation.
Exactly. That's what we're after.
What do you mean, I think we don't know?
Yeah, the whole town is involved in this ordinance, not just. the-
Well, I know, but I know that. But I'm just saying though, that some builders they just clear cut it.
I understand, it happens.
And this would prevent that. Believe me, I'm a tree holder. I mean, I don't cut down trees and
I think
but I
people,
don't
I think
like,
people should be allowed to do, when they
I do
own
too.
property, they should, really, we need to err on the side of
ownership.
And if I don't
And-
like
and
what they
free
did on
reign.
their property, then that's
I
my problem.
agree, I agree.
Unless it is an ecological or, unless you can prove public harm.
I-
It's ecological.
But I don't remember if I read.
Clearly, I don't know.
For that one, so.
No, but it's important, the thing that you said that's most important to me as a committee member is it has to do with the whole town. We have to consider everybody from the farthest corner to this person right here, everybody should be included in it. And I think that's an important thing, that everybody should have some kind of input and idea of what we're doing. Because as a community, that's where the interest needs to lie.
I don't remember which one I read it in. I know I read it in one of them, but in one of these ordinances that we've been bombarded with.
Yeah.
There is a section that has specifications that if a tree is under a certain size, then you don't have to get a permit.
Mhm.
Like we were talking about how the squirrels planted new trees.
Right.
For
Well,
us.
obviously, I cut the little saplings that are sprouting up, but I also cut like, oh, hey, this tree's growing that way, and so it's like that big, well, I'm just gonna cut that,
Well,
It's just-
Where the Sky Valley addresses that is when they say you're doing fire control. And that's basically what that comes under, is fire control. It's land maintenance. It's basically what you're talking about is land maintenance, which is good for your land. It's not hurting anything. I mean, you need it to keep things under control so that the rest of the trees that you have on your property thrive. And you don't have a lot of overgrowth. So I
And
mean,
when it comes, I'm sorry, when it comes to the 14 days to clean up, like. Because I'm for the least restrictive land ordinances possible, like, we make the minimum in order to work together as neighbors for the common good, but beyond that, people's property is their property, whether I like it or not. That's just mine. I do not live in an HOA for reasons, anything that strays that direction, I mean, leave
But if
it.
you don't put something, people will not remove it, and they may be business.
As far as I'm concerned, it's their property. their
It's what?
business. It's their business, that's their property.
Not if I have to look at it.
You don't have to look at it, you can close your curtains, that is their property.
Well, I
That
disagree
is
with
how I
that.
feel. Well, that's fine, we can disagree, I'm here to express my opinion.
I didn't move to the mountains to close my curtain. Or not be out on my deck.
Yes, but they pay for their property just like you have for yours.
Any more discussion? We'll get a clean copy of this by the 14th and then make a vote on it. So today we will, is a vote taken.
So when will you have a clean copy?
We should have it by,
The
we'll
July
get,
meeting.
yeah, we'll get Linda to send it out prior to July,
Okay.
just to make sure that everything's in place. And if there's any changes, we can make those changes.
a good
Right.
point was made, something that's not addressed in this ordinance that I think should, and that's the look of the top of any hills or mountains that we have. That's not addressed on here, and I think, I don't know how we can address that without being overreaching. But, you know, I think we should be careful about the long view of our mountains and hills. I know there's been some changes made and some clear cutting that was done that can be seen from the long distance. And I'm a firm believer in whatever one person can do, everybody should be able to do. And if you have one person that built a house on top of a mountain and cut the trees out to where you can see that from miles away, well, everybody should be able to do what that person did. And if you allow that, then you change the look of the mountain. Because all the trees that make that beautiful mountain are gone. So I think that that's something that should be a little bit more careful. Because you don't want the top of that mountain starting to look like a sausage. I've seen it, and you can see it on some of ours. It changes the look, the aesthetic look of that mountain. And I don't know how you could address it without overreaching. It's difficult, because when you put your house up, you obviously have to remove trees. And when you want a view, you have to remove some trees. I mean, there's certain circumstances where that has to happen.
Well,
You know.
I would agree with that, but not clearing the whole lot.
Right, but that's what my point is I don't know how we can address that without being completely overreaching.
There are ridge top ordinances.
But does this address some of the restrictions that we have, like 25%?
Yeah.
I mean, that addresses some of it. They
Yeah.
just wouldn't be able to go and clear the acre lot.
Well, I guess you could address it on the review part of it. You know, when somebody's building a home and it has to be reviewed, I mean, but I just think going forward, you'd want to be careful to not overreach, and also at the end of the day, not change the look of the aesthetic.
I think there is something that like and I don't know if it's called ridge top or if it's some kind of mountain protection. But I made myself a note to look that up.
Yeah, it'd be
And I
nice.
feel like we looked at something that had talked about it.
I saw that and it seems like I saw that.
Maybe it was in Cleveland.
I don't
Yeah.
think Sky Valley does, this one here doesn't address it really. And I'm surprised, but I didn't see anything in there. I don't have the clue.
And this goes for residential and commercial.
Mhm.
So you've got, which they, encompasses all of that. We didn't. This one doesn't talk about agricultural land.
Talk about agricultural,
Agricultural.
orange trees, green trees, we talk about.
Areas. We do have a good bit of agricultural land too. Everybody, there's lots of that land.
I didn't see that in Cleveland. I thought it was in
Yeah,
that one.
I felt like we had talked about ag land before.
In Clayton's, they have a determination of the acreage for average slopes for lots, typically site areas as far as what you can clear off on a slope. Did y'all see any of that?
Mm-mm.
No,
I mean, it
That has to do with erosion control too,
yeah.
which is really,
This is where I saw the size. Small tree means either evergreen or deciduous tree or shrub which do not normally exceed 12 feet in height at maturity. No tree which exceeds 12 feet in height shall be classified as a small tree. Maybe that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
12 feet in height is what it says, so
So that would cover your
chaplains.
little sideways here too.
Sometimes.
Where was that slope? That was Raven County,
It was Clayton.
Clayton?
Pass that around, look at it. It kind of gives a, I guess that's where I was getting that mountaintop protection. So you've got your priority zone, your protection zone, and then your restricted zone.
It's hard to tell what time it is anymore, the way it stays light till 9 o'clock.
It's almost 7 o'clock, so.
Yeah.
And that could just be part of the application permit as far as if there was going to be a,
This is super important though, because it gives you the idea of what we're talking about as far as slopes, that 40%, 25%, and then almost to 0, 10% slope. Way different than cutting trees,
yeah,
way different. Obviously, you have to be much more careful on the slope like that, you know. If you have flat land, then it's not gonna be as critical.
right. Is
Yeah, I
that
think-
something that you want to insert?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If nothing else, then to just have people be aware.
Yeah, we could, there's
Does
also,
that cover the line view?
No, this does not cover that. The,
I couldn't find it in any of these.
I mean, it does a little bit right here,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Because it tells you the different zones. But I think, we would probably have to get a little more specific as far as the lot that.
and that may be something that Linda's already familiar with because of Scott Valley. They have a lot of houses built on top of the mountain, so. that-
Yeah, I would think that they would address it.
Where she came from. Didn't she come from Sky Valley, Linda? Or wasn't she a clerk there? The clerk there?
Any more discussion on the tree ordinance until the next meeting? The next order of business is the land disturbance ordinance draft. I think everybody's got a copy of it. Do you need a copy of the minutes? Oh, you got it. Okay. And this is just confirming what we would like to send to the city council as a draft for approval, for their approval. And this is turning all the land disturbance permits over to EPD for permitting and as far as regulations go. Now, they will also have to have a public hearing on this one, correct? Okay, so,
Two, we have to have one for us.
Yeah.
And a second one from the city council.
Okay. So we would also have to have a public hearing on this.
Yes.
Do they approve it first, or do we send it as a draft
We
for,
send it as a draft.
for a public hearing?
We have the public hearing, and even after the public hearing, we have to present it to the city council, and then the city council has to look at it, and then they have to have a public hearing before they can change it.
Okay.
So there,
But their
there's
city
actually,
council meeting does not have to come in between us and our public hearing.
So as far as prior to the July 14th, do we have enough time to advertisement? Does it have to be
It
2
has to be
weeks?
10 days, I think.
So do you want to try to have a public hearing prior to the next meeting? Or is that too soon?
I think we should, if we're gonna get the Heather to come, I think the public meeting would be a great spot to have Heather be able to speak with any questions that anybody had for this ordinance. If we can do all of it at the next meeting, can we have a public hearing at the meeting?
You have, you call the public hearing and then you have the meeting afterwards.
I mean, that gives everybody that wants to talk about it, and it gets Heather here to answer questions about it too from the states.
I'll call her
From
and
any
find out,
perspective.
as quickly as I can to try to firm that up, because it's gonna become more and more important. But yeah, if we could do that by July, that'd be great. And I'll see if Travis is coming. Let her know what our intentions are at that meeting. So she knows that we're just trying to move along with the ordinance.
Does someone want to make a motion to set a date upon confirmation of the EPD coming on July 14th? Second. All in favor? And we didn't adopt the agenda prior to, we said, you made a motion, but we didn't vote on it. Is that correct? Is it too late to go back and do that, vote on the agenda? So you made the motion to adopt the agenda. Can we get a second?
Chrissy did,
All in favor? So we did that correctly. All right, any more discussion on the city business before us? Okay, so we will confirm the EPD
Right,
and then. we'll
and that's for
Linda-
the 14th of July.
Yeah, so we would have to let Linda know by the 3rd of July in order to publicize it. 10 days.
I'd say probably by the end of this month, it'd be safe.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, as soon as you hear back from them, we can do that.
Yeah, I'll send her an email, and if I don't get something back from her within a day, I'll follow up.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll
Second,
send it.
okay, all in favor? Okay. And I'll touch base with Linda too and make sure that, see if she can get all this, because